Right friends, welcome back to main events of our 20th week from 16th May to 22nd May. What are the highlights? Assembly election results of 4 states and the union territory of Pondicherry. In West Bengal, spectacular victory of Mamata Banerjee. In Tamil Nadu, defying anti-incumbency, Jayalalitha became victorious. In Kerala, decisive victory of LDF. In Assam, for the first time, Bharatiya Janata Party alliance came to power. In Pondicherry, Congress front became victorious, and we are going to deliberate on these election results. Then India unveils the first ever intellectual property rights policy. We are going to deliberate on what is meant by intellectual property rights. Then Supreme Court upholds law on criminal defamation. Here basically Supreme Court limited the applicability of Article 19(1)(a) with regard to the freedom of speech and expression, and Supreme Court considered right to reputation as part of right to life and liberty under Article 21. Then Union Cabinet clears the first ever capital goods policy to increase the production from the present level of around 2,30,000 crores to 7,50,000 crores. Then 5 years roadmap to hike production of pulses, because we are importing pulses to the tune of around 4 to 5 million tons every year. Then Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016 passed by Parliament, and good days for the banking system if it is implemented in true letter and spirit. Then gross NPAs and restructured assets, there is alarming rise. So these are the highlights, and we are going to deliberate one by one. First and the foremost is assembly election results to 4 states and the union territory of Puducherry. If you look at the state of West Bengal, total assembly constituencies 294. Trinamool Congress got 211, and the front led by CPM got 76, out of which Indian National Congress share is 44 and CPIM 26. And here the vote share of Trinamool Congress is around 45%, and it is a thumping victory for Mamata Banerjee's Trinamool Congress, and BJP got substantial vote share of more than 10%, and BJP front got 6 assembly constituencies, out of which 3 have been won by the Bharatiya Janata Party. And if you look at the largest southern state as far as population is concerned, that is Tamil Nadu, the total assembly constituencies are 234, elections were held for 232, and the election commission postponed elections in 2 assembly segments of Thanjavur and Aravakurichi because money was distributed in large quantities in these constituencies. So out of 232 assembly constituencies, AIADMK got 134, DMK front got 98, and here the difference in the vote shares of AIADMK and DMK front is just over 1%. Anyhow, it is victory worth mentioning for Jayalalitha, because it defied anti-incumbency wave, and Jayalalitha won most of the assembly segments towards the western part of the state, and DMK front got more seats towards the northern part of the state, including the metropolitan city of Chennai. And if you look at another southern state, that is Kerala, total assembly constituencies 140. LDF front got 91 out of CPIM share is 58, UDF is 47 out of Congress share is 22, but there is a substantial difference in the vote shares of LDF and UDF. LDF got 43% vote share, whereas UDF got 39% vote share. There is a difference of 4% in the vote share, so it is a decisive victory for LDF front. And if you look at BJP has got a substantial vote share of more than 10%, and it got one MLA from Thiruvananthapuram area. And if you look at Assam, the total assembly constituencies are 126, and here Bharatiya Janata Party front, primarily led by Bharatiya Janata Party, came to power for the first time, and Bharatiya Janata Party front got 86 seats, out of which BJP alone has got 60, and Indian National Congress has got 26, and AIUDF 13. And Bharatiya Janata Party incidentally in 2011 assembly elections got just 5 seats with 11.5% vote share, but now it won 60 seats with around 30% vote share. So substantial gains for BJP in northeastern state of Assam, and BJP maintained substantial vote share not only in West Bengal but also in Kerala, and Indian National Congress suffered major losses in these elections. And if you look at the union territory of Puducherry, here total assembly constituencies are 30, and please don't forget only 2 union territories have got legislatures, that is Delhi as well as Puducherry, and out of 30 seats Indian National Congress front got 17, out of which Indian National Congress has got 15. Right. So, if you analyze these results, Mamata Banerjee retained the stronghold of West Bengal, and Jayalalitha bucked the trend of anti-incumbency, and BJP gained substantially, and Congress suffered major losses. To sum up the results of these assembly elections. Right friends, let us move on to the next issue. India unveils the first ever intellectual property rights policy. You may ask, what is meant by intellectual property? Intellectual property is the creation of the mind, basically inventions. It may be literary work or artistic work, may be designs, symbols, names and images used in commerce, and it is protected by patents, copyrights, designs, trademarks, etc. And you may ask, what is meant by patent? Patent is exclusive right granted for an invention, maybe a production, maybe a process, and a new way of doing something, and normally valid for 20 years. If somebody has invented some new thing, then it will be protected by patents, copyrights. This is basically protecting the creators of literary and artistic works, maybe books, paintings, films, sculptures, databases. These are protected by Copyrights Act. And at the same time, trademark. You distinguish a logo between TCS and Infosys. Basically, trademark is the sign of distinguishing the goods or services of one enterprise from those of others. If you look at the logo of Infosys, you can easily identify that is Infosys. Similarly, if you look at the logo of Airtel, immediately you can distinguish and something comes to your mind about the company. Right. So, patents, copyrights, trademarks, these are all termed as intellectual property. And what is the present status in our country? In our country, please listen to carefully, various regulatory agencies in India. There is a Controller General of Patents, Designs and Trademarks under the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion. It looks at patents, designs, trademarks and geographical indications. Geographical indications are nothing but like Kanchipuram saree, Darjeeling tea, like that. So, this patents, designs, trademarks, geographical indications are regulated by CGPDTM, basically under Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion. And at the same time, please don't forget the Copyright Act of 1957, that means the protection of copyrights as per Copyright Act of 1957 as amended in 2012 is looked after by Department of Higher Education, that is Ministry of Human Resource Development. These things please don't forget. And at the same time, integrated circuits layout, that is integrated circuits are protected by Department of Electronics and Information Technology under the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology. Similarly, protection of various plant varieties under Farmers' Rights Act 2001 and Biodiversity Act are protected by Department of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare under the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. So these are the agencies to protect various types of intellectual property rights in our country. Out of these, the prominent is Controller General of Patents, Designs and Trademarks. And what is the present scenario in our country? United States of America is pressurizing India to make this intellectual property rights stricter. What is the need for making them stricter? All of you are well aware. Piracy of music, piracy of movies and unlicensed software, that is the norm in this country, and because of which $7 billion of loss is being caused annually. And as per the International IP Index released by Global Intellectual Property Center of US Chamber of Commerce, India ranked 29 out of 30 countries. This shows abysmal state in our country. And in April this year, US Trade Representative kept India along with China and Russia under priority watch list because of insufficient IPR laws in this country. And at the same time, please don't forget, as on February 1, total number of patent applications and trademark registrations pending are 2,37,000 and 5,44,000 respectively. And in our country, for registering a patent, it is taking several years. Right? So this is abysmal state of affair in this country as far as intellectual property rights is concerned. And what are the features of a new intellectual property rights policy? Basically, it is to promote creative India, innovative India, and everything industry creates, whatever is created in this country is to be registered, and counterfeit will not be allowed. That means the duplicate or piracy versions will not be allowed. That means whatever the industry creates, it will be registered, curbing the sale and manufacture of counterfeit products. And from now onwards, Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry will be the nodal authority for all intellectual property rights. We have seen there are various nodal agencies, and from now onwards DIPP will be the only nodal authority as far as IPR is concerned. And the policy outlined steps to strengthen legal and legislative framework, and at the same time it also proposed tax breaks to promote research and development, and it also proposed a loan guarantee scheme to cover risk of failure of IPR creation. Then the policy will, as usual, allow compulsory licensing in case of public health emergencies such as epidemics. In previous weeks, we deliberated in detail about compulsory licensing. Please listen to those lectures. So overall, this IPR policy is to institutionalize a mechanism in the country so that stringent enforcement will take place in future. Right? Let us wait and see for its strict implementation. Look at the next issue. Supreme Court upholds law on criminal defamation. You may ask, what is meant by defamation? If a person X is resorting to character assassination of person Y, that means person X has made certain comments against person Y without any substance, without based on any facts, and Supreme Court felt that the existing provisions of Indian Penal Code under sections 499 and 500, which prescribes 2 years imprisonment for a person found guilty of defamation, will stay. Supreme Court felt that freedom of speech and expression is not absolute, and if you look at what exactly Article 19(1)(a) says, Article 19(1)(a) says, all the citizens shall have the right to freedom of speech and expression, and at the same time immediately Article 19(2) stipulates that the state can impose reasonable restrictions. And Supreme Court several times felt that freedom of speech is not absolute. And in this case also, Supreme Court once again confirmed that freedom of speech is not absolute. In the name of freedom of speech and expression, you cannot make unnecessary comments against persons or institutions which may lead to character assassination. Right? So, while delivering its judgment, the Supreme Court inferred that right to reputation is inbuilt in Article number 21. All of you are familiar with Article 21. Article 21 is basically right to life and personal liberty. Supreme Court inferred that right to reputation should be inbuilt in right to life and personal liberty. So, when character assassination is there, it is against right to life and personal liberty. So, the Supreme Court tried to maintain balance between Article 19(1)(a) and Article 21, basically giving more emphasis of right to life and personal liberty, and the important aspect is right to reputation is taken as the inbuilt trait of Article 21, and at the same time imposing restrictions on freedom of speech and expression under Article 19(1)(a). Right? So, there are several comments and counter comments on this judgment by the Supreme Court. Looking to the next one, Union Cabinet clears first ever capital goods policy. You may ask what is meant by capital goods, and please look into this slide. These are capital goods, these are consumer goods. Capital goods are the goods which are used in manufacturing the end products such as compressors, engines, transformers, heavy machinery. These are all examples of capital goods. And consumer goods are basically goods used as end product. That means toothpaste, soap, mobile, furniture, soft drinks. These are all consumer goods. And Union Cabinet cleared the first ever capital goods policy. I have listed out here what is the present status in 2014-15, and as per capital goods policy by 2025, what will happen during the next 9 years? There are 4 important aspects. One is production of capital goods at present rupees 2,30,000 crores. They will increase to rupees 7,50,000 crores within 9 years. Then direct and indirect employment at present 8.4 million, and they will increase to 30 million by 2025. So, there is a scope for creation of additional 21 million direct and indirect employment. Then share of domestic production in India's demand is at present 60%, and it will go up to 80% by 2025. Now, exports are 27% of production. They will go up to 40% by 2025. So, the vision of the policy is building India as the world-class hub for capital goods. And please don't forget, the Department of Heavy Industry will monitor the progress of first ever capital goods policy. Right friends, look at the next one, other cabinet decisions. Hindustan Steel Works Construction Limited, the loss-making public sector undertaking, will become subsidiary of NBCC. NBCC is National Buildings Construction Corporation Limited, and NBCC will hold 51% equity. Second important point is cabinet approved waiving of loan of around 2000 crores, and at the same time waiver of outstanding interest of around 7000 crores on the loan owned by Hindustan Fertilizer Corporation Limited. And these two decisions are not palatable, and most important, this HSCL takeover by NBCC is not understandable. Government on one side is planning for aggressive disinvestment policy, and bailing out of ailing public sector undertakings is not palatable and is not understandable. And the third important one is the cabinet also granted post facto approval for undertaking cadre review of the Indian Postal Service. Right friends, next important aspect, 5-year roadmap to hike production of pulses. And the important point to note is pulses production touched a peak of 19 million tons in 2013-14 and came down to around 17 million tons in 2014-15 and almost at that level in 2015-16 also. So our pulses production is around 17 million tons, but our requirement is 22 million tons. So we are importing around 4 to 5 million tons of pulses. You may ask, what are the pulses? Please look into this slide. Moong dal, urad dal, then pigeon pea, chickpea. So these are all examples of pulses. And under this backdrop and at the same time, in view of the present scenario of import of pulses to the tune of around 4 to 5 million tons, government came up with the 5-year roadmap. The 5-year roadmap is to increase the pulses production to 24 million tons by 2021. At present, it is 17 million tons. Basically, to increase pulses production to 24 million tons by 2021. And there is a 5-pronged action plan I listed out here, setting up of 150 seed hubs across the country by ICAR. You may ask, what is ICAR? Indian Council of Agricultural Research, in the next 3 years, and each seed hub will produce 1000 quintals of pulses seeds, and distribution of seed mini kits so as to help farmers to get an idea about new varieties of pulses seeds of 5 major pulses crops, and at the same time providing incentives to seed growers, strengthening biofertilizers, and at the same time demonstration of improved crop production techniques. So this is a 5-year roadmap to hike production of pulses to 24 million tons by 2021. Right friends, let us look at the events of economy and banking. Most important event is Parliament finally passed this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. And what is it? Before that, you should understand the meanings of the terms debtor, creditor, at the same time insolvency and bankruptcy. If I borrow money from State Bank of India, State Bank of India will be creditor, I will be debtor. If I borrow money from State Bank of India, State Bank of India is the creditor, I will be debtor. And what is meant by insolvency? If person X has borrowed the money from State Bank of India, person X is not able to pay back the money, that is the state of insolvency. Person X has taken or borrowed money from State Bank of India. When person X or company Y is not able to pay back to State Bank of India, that state is known as insolvency, and the legal status is known as bankruptcy. there is a slight difference in the meaning of insolvency and bankruptcy. Insolvency is a state of being unable to pay back the money, and bankruptcy is the legal status of a person or company not able to pay back the money. And these terms, please don't forget: creditor, debtor, insolvency and bankruptcy. Why this is required? Basically, to resolve bad debts. In businesses, losses are quite common, and liquidation of companies takes place quite frequently. Profits and losses, business cycles, these are all common in businesses. So, whenever business collapses, then that company is to be liquidated and they have to pay back to the lenders, and at the same time it requires institutional framework. And as per this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016, it creates Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. The most important aspect is, as per Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016, it creates Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, and subsequently this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India will create insolvency professionals. So, these two terms from now onwards will be familiar in the industry. One is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, and the other one is Insolvency Professionals or IPs. The basic purpose of this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India is to make lenders come out of stressed assets. If you look at the banking system, several loans have become stressed assets, that means gross NPAs and restructured assets. These are known as stressed assets, and banks are not able to come out of stressed assets, and this mechanism of creation of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India will show the way for lenders to come out in case of the loans turning bad. And how it will take place, I have given in detail. Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, which will be a quasi-judicial body, will be set up, and at the same time this board will entertain applications to verify the insolvency of a company, and the application for insolvency can be submitted by the debtor company or a creditor of the debtor company, and the board will register agencies as well as professionals, and board will specify minimum eligibility requirements for registration of insolvency professionals and agencies and regulate them. So, the crux of the matter here is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India will be created, which in turn it will create agencies and insolvency professionals, and insolvency professionals will be entrusted with the task of looking at the liquidation of the company or rehabilitation of the company which is into problems, right? And salient features I have listed here, please go through them. Creditors were given overriding powers to approve terms of any restructuring package. That means creditors will dictate the terms, and it reduced the duration of insolvency resolution process to 270 days. At present it is taking several years, and after 270 days the company will be automatically liquidated, and at the same time it introduced third party insolvency professionals. As I have already told you, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India will nominate insolvency professionals as intermediaries to oversee the insolvency resolution process. However, final decision will be taken by Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. And you may ask a question, how does it help creditors? And it will significantly boost the bargaining power of creditors against large debtors, and the present legislation will be unified framework and will replace several laws drafted in piecemeal manner with overlapping jurisdictions. And at the same time, corporate borrowers will try to avoid loan default because of a fear of change in management, and banks will have more influence over restructuring process as they can choose the management. And at the same time, it is expected to increase the ease of doing business, and it will open up a new vertical of business activity for professionals such as lawyers and chartered accountants. Right? Finally, India has got Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. If it is implemented in true letter and spirit, definitely ease of doing business in our country will increase. Right? And finally, gross NPAs and restructured assets. Here, I would like to convey there is an alarming rise in gross non-performing assets and restructured assets. What is meant by non-performing asset? When borrower has taken money from a bank, then if he failed to pay back for more than 90 days, it becomes a gross non-performing asset. And at the same time, restructured assets, when there is a genuine reason, when banks restructure the loans, they are known as restructured assets, and there is most likelihood of a failure of paying back even in restructured assets also. That's why these two are very important in the banking system, and these two put together, gross NPAs and restructured assets put together, are known as stressed assets. Right? And if you look at the increase of this gross NPAs, they increased from 97,000 crores in March 2011 to 3,23,000 crores in March 2015, and similarly restructured assets also increased from 67,000 crores of rupees to 5,20,000 crores of rupees during the past 4 years. And banks are showing losses in recent times because of the reason when the loan becomes bad, then banks have to keep some money aside, which is known as provisioning from their profits. That's why banks are showing poor results in recent times. And now, with the passage of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016 by the Parliament, let us hope the situation will improve in the near future. Right friends, with this let us conclude the lecture part for week number 20. Have a nice day. Thank you.